Hi there, my name is Ann McClure. I am a residential realtor with McInerney Associates Realtors in the DC metro region, and I work by referral in close in Northern Virginia and Montgomery County, Maryland, and I have partners across the river in DC. And we are here for another episode of Ask the Expert, which we do a couple of times a month. And I want to welcome our expert today, Bryan McDaniel. Bryan, hello, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Ann.
Bryan is the owner of easydownsizing.com, and we're going to hear a little more about his business, and we've got some really good questions lined up for him. But before we launch into that, I wanted to let you know that this will run about half an hour, and if we have time at the end, we'll do some questions. We're going to make this available later on YouTube, on my website. We can send links, so if you see information that you want to get later, or you forget how to contact Bryan, or you want to forward it to somebody, you can always reach out to me and I will get you the information. But we're so pleased that you joined us today. We started Ask the Expert during the pandemic as a way to bring really good house, home, and real estate market information to not just our clients, but our friends and fans out there and people who just stumble across us and want good house and home information. And we try to bring a local expert every time we do this so that we can impart really good knowledge. And we believe in supporting local businesses. And we have a really good local business today who has a really far reach. So you'll hear our guest talk about it, but what he does while he's based here in the DC metro region, he really can go anywhere, and he really can appeal to anyone anywhere in the globe with what he does. So you're going to hear more about that in a little bit. But don't keep us a secret. If you like the information, please share the link and let your friends and family and colleagues know about us. I always like to start with a real estate market update before we launch in, because that's what I do. And so I wanted to let you guys know we have started another rip-roaring year here in the DC metro region. We're about 7 weeks in, and each of the 7 weeks this year, we have had lower contract activity than the same week last year. So 7 weeks of lower contract activity than the same 7 weeks last year. And so what that's done is when you have lower contract activity, it's because you have less inventory. The lack of the homes on the market means that buyers are competing. It's crazy out there, really. Many offers on homes, waiving of all kinds of contingencies, wild competition. And the inventory is so limited and so tight, is a phrase we use, that that shows up in the days on market. And days on market is a definition we use in the industry that means how long it takes the average listing to go from being on the market to under contract. And in our region right now, it's 20.6 days, which might sound like a lot, because if you think of the house across the street that went on the market and was under contract in 3 days, which we're seeing across the board, you got to average in the new construction that sometimes shows many months on the market while it's getting ready. You have to average in, I hate to say it, but the dogs of the market, and there are still listings that are priced too high. And there are listings that come on, go under contract, and then come out of contract and go back on the market. So that 20.6 is a ridiculously low number. And it is a full week faster than this time last year and 2 weeks faster than 2020. So very, very robust, fast market with low inventory. It is a fantastic time to sell. If you have been thinking of selling, and I hear this across the country, if you've been thinking of selling, now is a great time. If you know somebody who's thinking of selling, tell them to get their home on the market. At some point, we expect this to moderate some, but now it is still really a great time for sellers. So I don't want to belabor anymore. I want to get to our guests. So again, Bryan, we're so happy that you've joined us today. We're going to do a little intro here. Bryan, he's a really interesting background. So easydownsizing.com is a veteran-owned company, and it was founded by our guest here, Bryan McDaniel. He is a retired Marine who spent more than 23 years in active duty. Bryan, thanks for your service.
Well, thank you. Thanks for supporting me. Appreciate it.
Of course. Of course. Bryan's vision was to create an accountable, personable, and professional online auction estate sale company that would serve the needs of a wide variety of customers. And he had a really interesting entrance into the auction world when he was a young Marine. He found himself regularly attending auctions at Don's Auction Barn. Is that still around, do you know?
I doubt that it is. That was in the early 80s, yeah.
Okay. Well, Don's Auction Barn in Jacksonville, North Carolina was frequented by Bryan, and the auctioneer noticed his regular attendance and said, since you're going to be here anyway, would you like to do some work with us? And that was the beginning of his introduction into the wonderful and wild world of live auctions, which we discovered in discussing things has some parallels to the real estate market. But let's fast forward many years of active duty in the Marines, where Bryan served overseas and was able to build up some really cool inventory of interesting artifacts and I just think an interesting array of things, like some of the kinds of things you see on the shelves behind him from Asia. So he was frequenting flea markets and antique shops and auctions in Japan. And then he had a stint on eBay. In the eBay world, followed by other career turns. It didn't have as much to do with the auction process until he got his certification as a personal property appraiser. And then in 2013, Bryan opened McDaniel Auction Center, and he also purchased an existing estate sale company called Smart Move for Seniors. And those can be some really good services I've found for my own clients. But he combined all of these experiences, a licensed auctioneer, appraiser, eBay seller, and estate sale services provider into what is now easydownsizing.com. And his vision is that rather than shopping all of these things, you got the auctioneers, appraisers, consignment shops, online auction companies, estate sales, antique shops. In fact, Bryan, I didn't tell you, but I'm here on Antique Row in Kensington right now.
Nice.
On Howard Avenue, yeah. But instead of having to go all these places, the consumer could make a single call to easydownsizing.com or maybe even a single online visit. And Bryan, I think you have such a great background, such a vast depth of knowledge. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say and to share it. So thank you for joining us again. And let's just launch right into the questions.
Sure.
All right, Bryan. So I wanted to start, it's going to seem a little bit basic, but can you first start with what an estate sale auction is in general? And then let's talk about what easy auctioning is. And I gave a little bit of background here, but I know you can tell us a little more, and then how an online estate sale auction works.
Sure. So an online estate sale, which is what we do, is like a traditional estate sale. Where people are looking to downsize, or they're moving and they got a house full of stuff they want to sell. And people are used to seeing these signs that say estate sale, moving sale type things that are conducted by professionals, not necessarily if they're conducting it by themselves. So what they would do is they put price tags on things and let people go through the house, and they would shop the house and they would buy things and they would negotiate on prices. And hopefully when they're done, most of the items would be sold. That's kind of a traditional estate sale. Our model is we just take a picture of everything in the house, and it's everything, because people think we focus on the jewelry and the antiques and the collectibles, but it's not the case. We understand that that people are moving, or someone's an executor of an estate, and that place needs to get liquidated. So again, our process is to go in there, take a picture of everything in the house, put it online, and allow people to bid on those items for about a week. And then after that week of bidding, the bidding process is over, and those items now have a new owner, and we schedule what we call a pickup day. And those individuals show up at the house, we direct them to what they've purchased, and they carry it out. And when we're done, the house is basically empty. We don't sell about 2% of the items that we list for one reason or another, but 98% of the items will sell.
It's interesting you talking about your process. It was so great to kind of gel, or you and I did some business together during the pandemic, and it was fantastic because people were afraid to have folks in their home. People who might go to an auction were afraid to be around other people, and you really came up with a business model that solved a lot of those problems. And in the process, you have a more streamlined, organized process regardless. I mean, the pandemic helped sort of shine a spotlight on how you do it, right? But then overall, your process is just it's been made better by this, I think.
You're right, Ann, and I appreciate you recognizing that. We've been doing this for about 7 years now, completely online auction estate sales. But because of the pandemic, it's become very popular. And just the way people shop today, everybody has one of these, and nobody wants to put it down. You know, it's never out of reach, and you can see people kind of patting themselves like, "Where's my phone at? Where's my phone?" Because they like their phone. They like to go to Amazon. They like to bid and buy. Or not necessarily bid, but purchase things on Amazon. And we make it convenient for them to shop estate sales. So if they're looking for something, they can either just browse, an estate sale and see if there's something they're interested in, or we have a search feature. So if someone collects Barbie dolls or someone needs a power washer, they can just search and see if we're selling a power washer somewhere and just, bid on it, the amount they're willing to pay, and then just pick it up on the scheduled pickup day. It's very convenient, and it's very effective, very efficient, and it's very transparent to the seller, because the sellers can see there's a picture of my item, there's a description, and that's how much it sold for.
I also love that it's almost like a metaphor. Your shelves there behind you, because you've got stuff all over the world. Exactly. I see a lot of Asian artifacts. But what's interesting about estate sales is a lot of them, especially in the DC metro region, where you have so many military folks and foreign service, you've got these great collections from all over the world, and then everything was hyper local, right? But you opened it up to the whole world. So I think that's awesome. And speaking of that, Bryan, what areas do you serve? Like, where have you done auctions, and what areas do you typically serve?
Our office is in Sterling in Loudoun County, but we serve Maryland, Washington, D.C. are our primary areas there. But we have conducted sales in Ohio, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and we just franchised in January. So just last month, we sold our very first franchise in Florida. So now we have a presence in Florida, who's actually already, even though they just started in January, they've already conducted one sale. They're working on their second one right now. So
I think it's awesome. And Florida is a mecca, because I know from visiting my family down there, I have an aunt who used to say, "Hey, we got to go to the consignment shops, because all the good everybody comes down here and lives till they die, and they brought all their stuff with them, and there's great stuff here." I thought that was so funny. Anyway, sorry, Francis, if you're watching, I just outed you. So Bryan, the owners and the sellers. Okay, so one of the stressors in my business is that the people selling are often selling a house, and they're worried about, how do I get everything out of here? How do I do this and maneuver in the space and organize and sort and all those things? So a big question, and one of the things I think is great about your company, it's a leading question, is, do owners or sellers need to be completely moved out in order for you to conduct an online estate auction sale?
No, that's one of the benefits to this process, is they can still be living in the house. And with their traditional estate sale, we'll say, you have people coming through the house and shopping the things that are within the house. And if the owners are staying there, and they might be keeping things that they're taking to their new location, or maybe they want to leave furniture there to stage the home with, those items may not be for sale. But it's confusing for traditional shoppers who are like walking through the house looking. Where with our process, the owners, what we ask them to do is we say, just put a piece of blue painter's tape on the things you want to keep. And those are the things that we don't take photos of. If there's a room that you don't want us to go into, put a piece of blue painter's tape on that door, and we know to stay out of there. If you're selling half the stuff in the kitchen cabinets, we ask them to take it and put it in, if you got 6 cabinets, take it and put it into 3 cabinets, and put a piece of blue tape on the other 3 cabinets that you're keeping those things. So when we list these items for sale, all the buyers see are the items that are for sale. And those are the items that we've taken pictures of under the direction of the sellers, who very well may still be living in the home.
So first of all, I love that, because it solves a huge problem. And I hope everybody listening really got that. Like, you don't have to move out, and you don't have to sort everything.
Nope.
They're going to come in and help with all that. But also, Bryan, you touched on the process a bit. So how long does this take from the time somebody says, "Bryan, we want to go with you"? How long does it take to get through this process to, okay, my items are cleared out and I've got my money?
We like 3 weeks from beginning to end. Sometimes we don't always have that luxury. It's because the auction runs for 1 week. Okay, it's just we have processed it, it's up, and people are bidding for 1 week. We need that 1 week for just the auction to run. Then we like a week to what we call processing the sale. There's a lot of effort in taking photographs of everything in the house. And when I say everything, again, we will sell a half bottle of Windex if it is in that house. We'll put it with some other cleaning supplies, but it's not unusual when we're done for someone to have 800 items that we have photographed in a house. And it's a time-consuming process. We take the photographs, we write the descriptions. So that's going to take us about a week to complete that process. Then the auction's going to run live for 1 week. And then something we do, and that's convenient for the buyers, is when the auction is over, and when it's typically over on a Wednesday evening, we found that's a good day to have it. And the pickup's going to be on that Saturday or Sunday, is we'll go back to the house on that Thursday or Friday, and we consolidate the items that someone has purchased. So if someone purchases 10 items, for instance, we have their invoice. We know that, Bob Jones purchased 10 items. So we'll go in there and we will gather those things and consolidate those into one central location. So when Mr. Jones shows up, it's not a scavenger hunt. He's not going through the house and, looking for his items. We've already consolidated those. We've written on his invoice where they're located at. And so when he shows up, we direct him to those items. We check off that he's received them, and then he goes away, and then we can assist the next seller. We usually have 4 or 5 staff members at any sale. So we can assist 4 or 5, buyers at any time. But we want to get them in and out efficiently, because you don't want the neighbors being upset because there's 40 cars outside, and people can be discourteous about where they park. Some people don't want people parked in front of their mailboxes if the mailman's coming. So anyway, we want to get them in and out relatively quickly, and that helps with the neighbors. It helps with the seller, and the buyers like that as well. So 3 weeks beginning to end. So that's our timeline.
It's 3 weeks, and it's very efficient. And like you said, everything they want gone is gone at the end. What if, I've directed some people to your online auctions who I knew were looking for certain things. So what if somebody is looking, you mentioned the catalog, and what if somebody's looking for a particular item, and they're looking, for, you mentioned the advertising, they're looking for a tall boy walnut dresser or something. Mm-hmm. Can they go online and search that for your auctions or others, or how does that work? Reversing it now from the seller to the buyer's perspective. Sure.
If someone's buying, and let's just say they are looking for, a tall boy, high boy dresser, like you had mentioned, last week we had 5 auctions up at one time. Now they can search, do a general search of all 5 auctions and see where that might be sold. Now, one of them might be sold in Tampa, so maybe they're not willing to go to Tampa to get that. So they can designate the geographical area in which they're looking for this thing. So if we've got, if you only want to go 100 miles, you can put that 100-mile parameter in there, or 50-mile, whatever it is you're looking for, and then it'll limit that search, and you can just type in. You can drill down, because when you start Googling stuff, you get a little bit more specific. So you type in dresser, and if there's 30 dressers, then you can maybe type in, high boy or mahogany or walnut, whatever it is you're looking for, to kind of drill down. But that'll absolutely show you which auctions we may be selling something like that, and the location where you would have to pick it up if you purchased it.
I think that's great. And because you're advertising your auctions on other websites, I can't think of the name of it, but there were a couple you told me about that are consolidate all of the online auctions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, auctionzip.com is one that all auctioneers use, whether they're live auctioneers or online auctioneers, and it's a national site. So we use AuctionZip. We use one called estatesales.net. So anybody who's a professional estate sales seller, they can put their item on there, and someone can search on estatesales.net. If they're looking for a high boy dresser, they just type it in there, and it'll let them know which auctioneers are actually selling those, and then they can go to that auction site and find out which sales those are conducted at. So AuctionZip, estatesales.net, and Craigslist is a great resource. So we will cut and paste the entire catalog of someone's home that we're listing into a Craigslist ad. So if people are just searching Craigslist looking for, a high boy dresser, they would be able to find that one's being sold at our auction.
That's awesome. So what if somebody only has a few items to sell? They don't have a whole household. They don't even have half a household, using our example of 3 of the 6 cabinets, and don't go in this room, but go in this room. What if they have 2 or 3 items? And I'll give a current example. I've got a client who has a really good condition Hoosier, authentic Hoosier, with some of the bells and whistles from back in the day. It was a very nice model, but they've really only got that and maybe 1 or 2 other pieces to sell. And it's harder, I think, to get rid of those little piecemeal jobs, right?
That's right. And if someone has 1 or 2 items, we wouldn't necessarily say that would justify hiring a professional service to come in and conduct an estate sale for them if they've got just a handful of items. But what we're able to do, Anne, is we have a warehouse or gallery in Sterling where we can accept those few items on consignment, and then we just add those and create what we call a multi-estate auction, where we may still be selling 800 items, but they may belong to 50 different sellers. So we just create one auction event out of our warehouse in Sterling, and we do those about twice a month.
And do people have to get the items to you, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. I love that you do that, because I think it helps all these people out there that have just a few little things. How about items you won't sell, Bryan? Like, obviously illegal, right? Or otherwise. I mean, you mentioned the half bottle of Windex. I remember seeing a wooden pallet like you see behind grocery stores. I remember seeing a wooden pallet on your website and thinking, will someone really buy that? But are there items you won't sell?
Yes, we won't sell anything that's illegal, as you mentioned. We go into people's homes and, they have a wine collection, or they have, some alcohol, and, we don't have ABC license. So we can't sell that sort of stuff. I tell them if they have a straw, we could take care of it, but we're not allowed to sell it. But if they want to, if they're like, hey, can you just get rid of it? We'll kind of leave it sit there. And if it's up to the seller, of course, if somebody comes in and they want to make a purchase and we say, hey, there's some freebies the owner's giving away. If you want to haul that out, you're welcome to do that. But we won't sell it. We won't sell alcohol. And we won't sell, again, anything illegal. If someone has a carton of cigarettes in there, obviously we're not going to sell that. Someone's got a cabinet full of narcotics, we're not going to sell, prescription drugs, anything like that. So if it's illegal, we're obviously not going to sell it. Also, if it's offensive, we're not going to sell it. And, there's different levels of, people being offended by certain things. And what we don't want to do, though, is, you got Aunt Jenny. She's lived in this community forever. And her dad has some German, World War II memorabilia from whenever, so we're not going to put that as a sale at her house, because we don't want any neighbors thinking, well, we don't want to be associated with those people because they're not good people. Well, of course they're good people, we hope so anyway. And we don't want to people who may not be interested in the property now because of maybe who lived there before, based on some of the things that may be considered offensive in the home. So as long as it's not illegal, as long as it's not, offensive or embarrassing, we'll sell it.
I think that's awesome, because again, I feel like this method protects the privacy of the seller, and it in so many ways takes care of them, which is good. And you surprised me once by telling me you'll even sell houseplants.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
They will. I mean, people love houseplants, so we will absolutely sell them. And there's a demand for those. So they sell surprisingly well. And something else about this type of sale, Anne, is when we do it online, you don't have, everybody in the neighborhood coming through the house as you would a traditional estate sale. They just see it and they just kind of like, they may be interested in purchasing stuff. They may not be interested in purchasing stuff, but they just kind of want to like nose around into their neighbor's home. So this kind of prevents that. Also, the only people going to these homes with our method are the people who actually purchase something. So it's not people it limits the traffic in the home. And as you mentioned, these people are selling their house. Sometimes it's already sold. So they certainly want to protect, their home that they may have just had freshly painted. They don't want, hundreds of people going through the house and shopping their house and, the wear and tear of the carpet and what have you.
And these days, buyers are using any method they can to find out about properties, including going to estate sales because they figure, oh, this is going to be hitting the market,
That happens.
Yeah, we're getting craftier with this low inventory. So, who do you typically see buy, like as a buyer to online estate sales? Buyer?
There are a lot of different buyers. And oddly enough, we have the same buyers that shop sale after sale after sale after sale. And it's interesting because I will guarantee you 30% of the people that will show up, I will know them. They have purchased from us before, and some of them are prolific and purchase from us every single week. And I kind of want to say, what do you do with all this stuff? But as long as they're buying, it's, I want them to keep coming back. I don't want them to question why they're buying it. So
Right.
There's a lot of, just repeat buyers. There are people who are looking for an item like on Craigslist. Someone's shopping for like weights, for instance. I use as an example. People don't collect weights necessarily, but hey, maybe they want, they don't want to go to the gym because of COVID, but they're searching on Craigslist and hey, there's some weights being sold by here. So that's the person looking for that specific item that they need. So it could be weights, could be a power washer, could be a lawnmower, could be a couch or a dresser. So there's people who buy things because they actually need them. And then there are people who are collectors. If we sell stamps, there might be somebody in California who collects stamps, and we ship, which is also a benefit to this type of shopping because we're not limited. If we do a sale in Sterling, for instance, we're not limited to the people who are within 20 miles of Sterling who are shopping because it's on the internet. And we have shipped stuff to Australia for people who have shopped our sales and have purchased stuff in Australia. So I would say we have collectors that purchase. We have just our regular customers who purchase. And then there are people who are just looking for items, specific items that purchase from us.
I find it such an interesting world. And I do know there are people like you as a young Marine who kind of get into it, And I know people who have found, pieces of art by notable artists that they got for very good prices. So, what happens if items don't sell? So, for instance, one of my objectives in helping my clients is sometimes they can't let go of things because they say, my kids don't want it, but this meant something to me because it was Aunt Jenny's and it's so nice and my uncle carved it or, whatever it is. And they want to make some money, even if it's $2. It feels like, okay, that was of value to somebody. And we want to get the house cleared out so we can help them sell. So, what happens with those items that just don't sell?
That's a good question as well. With our process, this sounds, and I tell customers or clients, it sounds terrifying, but everything we sell starts at $1 and goes up from there. So let's assume when we're done that there's 4 things that didn't sell. That means there's 4 things that nobody wanted to pay $1 for them. So how much value can they have if nobody wanted to pay $1 for those items? And sometimes it doesn't mean they're not worth anything. It means somebody doesn't want to move it. It means there's a beautiful baby grand piano, needs refinished, but nobody wants to pay $1 for it because nobody wants to haul it out of there. And that happens. And the same thing will happen with sometimes a china cabinet. Somebody doesn't really want to move a china cabinet. Sometimes it happens because we're trying to sell a plaid couch and there's just not a demand for a plaid couch. So, but to answer your question, those items that don't sell are still the property of the owner. Okay, if they want us to arrange to remove those, we can arrange to have those items removed when we're done. Because we understand that a lot of times that we'll say $5,000 or $6,000 worth of stuff in the house is just a speed bump for them selling the property. They want to sell the property, so they want to maximize the value of the things they can sell, but things they don't sell, they need them to go away, and we can assist them with making those things go away. And when you mentioned, and if I could go back here, because you mentioned something where you mentioned like, hey, these people go to an estate sale and they talk about buying this painting for $10 that's worth, we'll say, $1,000. And that happens at estate sales, and I've done that at estate sales. I don't want to, toot my own horn. I bought a trunk at an estate sale for $500 and I sold it for $18,000 because
Wow.
that's what it was worth. But when we put these things online and you just don't have that one person showing up at a traditional estate sale, it's online. So if this trunk was online that I purchased, that was from Pennsylvania and it was from this certain, area of Pennsylvania, there's going to be people who recognize that. And there's no way I would have got that for $500. So when we put things online, we have a whole community out there of people who are keeping each other honest. So those type of mistakes aren't made with the online sales the way they would be with the traditional sale. So when people go, oh, I don't want my trunk to sell for $1, well, it's probably not. It's probably going to sell for its market value because it's online and it's exposed to a lot of people.
Bryan, this is where we saw the parallel with real estate, because we always say you get the best price when you cast the widest net, because you expose your home to the widest number of people. And maybe that doesn't mean you just open your door and let a million people come through an open house. Maybe it means beautiful photography online in lots of places where people can find you, so people can see and go, oh, wow, I'm interested in this. Well, that's how you get the best prices, right? I mean, I love what you said about your loyalty is to the highest bidder. It's like, my job is to protect the seller, and protecting the seller means getting the best price and terms. It's
Absolutely.
not that seller for you, right?
We have many parallels. You're absolutely right. And it's just like comps, right? I mean, homes are worth what home to the left and right of it is sold for. And that's, again, everybody has one of these things. So when people are shopping my auction, they're going to eBay, they're seeing what those items are selling for on eBay, and they're buying it, based on the comps that are out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've got really informed and educated consumers, whether it's real estate or trunks from Pennsylvania or artifacts from Asia. I mean, it's very interesting to me. And it's interesting to me also the nuances that something can play. A particular part of Pennsylvania is where this trunk is from. Particular updates at a house or the way the light enters. I mean, it can make people have an emotional reaction. It can make the bidding go up.
Absolutely.
So I can go a little too far afield on that. But, so Bryan, let's wrap up with a question that always fascinates me. I always like to ask sort of what's the craziest thing you've seen? But what are one or two of the most unusual items you've sold, or maybe even, if you're willing to share, the highest dollar item you've sold?
We sell all kinds of unusual things, and they're not necessarily high dollar items that we sell. Like one was somebody had like an original Daniel Boone hat, one of the raccoon skin caps that Daniel Boone, and the leather outfit. So I thought that was kind of like interesting and unique. Someone had some NASA stuff, some photographs that, only belonged to NASA. They weren't like public release type stuff. And those things were very, very popular. We found $43,000 in cash in someone's house. So we didn't sell it, obviously, but the family didn't know it was there, but we were happy to, give it to them. They were happy to find that there. But, one of the highest priced things that we sold was a book, and the family was ready to just have the house emptied out. They'd already, taken what they wanted, and they just wanted someone to just clear out the house and get rid of everything. But there was a book in that house that was that sold for $123,000, and it was a book that there was one or two of them known, and they were hand drawn maps of North Carolina. So
that is awesome. In their wildest dreams, they probably never imagined it would get that.
Absolutely.
Kind of money.
No, absolutely not. It's kind of like those people who go to Antiques Roadshow and people are telling them what their stuff is worth, and they're kind of like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, which I could see how that could happen.
Yeah, I always think those are funny because, they show the ones that are so fantastical, It's like, but I toured a listing recently in Reston, Virginia with a client, and they had the wildest antiquities in the house. They had this little like glass case or plexiglass, I don't know what it was, with a two-headed duckling.
Yes.
Stuff like that. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you wonder, like, what would it do in an online auction? But I love what you do. I love that you solve problems for clients, for sellers. I love that you served our country. I love that you're interested in foreign objects and different cultures, and improving the way business is done. Bryan, I just think you're a great business and a great resource, and I thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, thank you for asking me to join you, Ann. This is my passion. I really enjoy doing this. I love keeping things out of the landfill and finding new owners for items that people may just want to get rid of. So it's nice when you can find someone who actually appreciates it and gives it a new life.
Yep, I love that too. And we just showed your contact information. And again, to those of you watching, or if you're watching later, and we hope you are, and you need Bryan's information, you want to bounce something off me, whatever, we can always put you in touch. We can always make this video available to you by YouTube or Facebook or my website. And we're going to get it to Bryan, so any of his peeps watching can have access to it as well. And we hope you'll join us again in a couple of weeks for another Ask the Expert. We're so happy that you joined us today. We're grateful again to you, Bryan. And I also always like to thank Jennifer for everything she does behind the scenes. So thanks everybody for joining us. We'll catch you next time for another episode of Ask the Expert.
Awesome. Thanks, Ann.
That's it. All done.
All right.
How'd it look, Jennifer?
It went really well. Yeah, it went really well.
Good job.
I thought it was really good and conversational.
I agree, for sure.
It flew.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
Well, I'm excited. My franchisee wanted to kind of dial in today. She's like, I'm at a site working today and I really want to watch it. And I said, it'll be recorded. She's like, yay. So
yeah. Did Jennifer, we didn't have any questions, did we? Because the time I just wrapped us up.
no, we didn't. But I did have, the nice thing about doing it.
Your audio went out. You what?
The nice thing about doing it from the office is I can see more screens,
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, okay. So you can see people on?
I can actually see, yeah. So
I'm gonna go.
and people were tuning in. They come in and then they, like I said, they come in, they watch for a few minutes and then they come back later or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bryan, Jennifer will email you later with the link. And
Awesome.
If I hear from anybody who has questions or whatever, and sometimes we get follow-up questions later, we'll get in touch, okay?
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ann.
Yeah, thanks for joining today. Jennifer, do you want me to call you?
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. I appreciate it.
Guys.